Hey, sixth grade. So we're almost done with the magician's nephew, and Diggory has the apple that Aslan asked for so that the seeds can save Narnia. And that's where we left off. He bowed his great head rather sadly and breathed into the magician's terrified face. Sleep, he said. Sleep and be separated for some few hours from all the torments you have desired for yourself. Uncle Andrew immediately rolled over with closed eyes and began breathing calmly. Carry him aside and lay him down, said Aslan. Now, dwarfs, show your smithcraft. Let me see you make 2 crowns for your king and queen. More dwarfs than you could dream of rushed forward to the golden tree. They had all of its leaves stripped off and some of its branches torn off too. Before you could say Jack Robinson, and now the children could see that it was not merely look golden, but was of real soft gold. It had of course sprung up from the place where the sovereigns had fallen out of Uncle Andrew's pocket and when he was turned upside down, just as the silver tree had grown up from the half-crowns. From nowhere, as it seemed, piles of dry bushwood for fuel, a little anvil, hammers, tongs, and bellows were produced. Next moment, how those dwarfs loved their work! The fire was blazing, the bellows were roaring, the gold was smelting, the hammers were clinking. 2 moles, whom Aslam had set to dig, which was what they liked best, earlier in the day, poured out a pile of precious stones at the dwarfs' feet. Under the clever fingers of the little smiths, 2 crowns took shape. Not ugly, having things like modern European crowns, but light, delicate, beautifully shaped circlets that you could really wear and look nicer by wearing. The king's was set with rubies, and the queen's was set with emeralds. When the crowns had been cooled in the river, Aslan made Frank and Helen kneel before him, and he placed the crowns on their heads. Then he said, Rise up, king and queen of Narnia, father and mother of many kings that shall be in Narnia and the Isles and Archenland. Be just and merciful and brave. The blessing is upon you. Then everyone cheered or bayed or neighed or trumpeted or clapped its wings, and the royal pair stood looking solemn and a little shy, but all the nobler for their shyness. And while Diggory was still cheering, he heard the deep voice of Aslan beside him saying, Look. Everyone in that crowd turned its head, and then everyone drew a long breath of wonder and delight. A little way off, towering over their heads, they saw a tree, which had certainly not been there before. It must have grown up silently, yet swiftly as a flag rises when you pull it up a flagstaff, while they were all busied about the coronation. Its spreading branches seemed to cast light rather than shade, and silver apples peeped out like stars from under every leaf. But it was the smell which came from it, even more than the sight, that made everyone draw in their breath. For a moment, one could hardly think about anything else. Son of Adam, said Aslan, you have sown well. And you, Narnians, let it be your first care to guard this tree, for it is your shield. The witch of whom I told you has fled far away into the north of the world. She will live on there, growing stronger in dark magic. But while that tree flourishes, she will never come down into Narnia. She dare not come within 100 miles of the tree, for its smell, which is joy and life and health to you, is death and horror and despair to her. Everyone was staring solemnly at the tree when Aslan suddenly swung around his head, scattering golden beams of light from his mane as he did so, and he fixed his large eyes on the children. What is it, children? He said, for he caught them in the very act of whispering and nudging one another. Oh, Aslan, sir, said Diggory, turning red. I forgot to tell you. The witch has already eaten one of those apples, one of the same kind that the tree grew from. He hadn't really said all he was thinking, but Polly at once said it for him. Diggory was always much more afraid than she of looking like a fool. So we thought, Aslan, she said, that there must be some mistake, and she can't really mind the smell of those apples. Why do you think that, daughter of Eve? Asked the lion. Well, she ate one. Child, he replied, that is why all the rest are now a horror to her. That is what happens to those who pluck and eat fruits at the wrong time and in the wrong way. The fruit is good, but they loathe it ever after. Oh, I see, said Polly. And I suppose because she took it in the wrong way, it won't work with her. I mean, it won't make her always young and all that? Alas, said Aslan, shaking his head, it will. Things always work according to their nature. She has won her heart's desire. She has unwearying strength and endless days like a goddess. But length of days with an evil heart is only length of misery, and already she begins to know it. All get what they want. They do not always like it. I nearly ate one myself, Aslan, said Degree. Would I? You would, child, said Aslan. For the fruit always works. It must work. But it does not work happily for any who pluck it at their own will. If any Narnian, unbidden, had stolen an apple and planted it here to protect Narnia, it would have protected Narnia. But it would have done so by making Narnia into another strong and cruel empire like Charn, not the kindly land I meant it to be. And the witch tempted you to do another thing, my son, did she not? Yes, Aslan. She wanted me to take an apple home to my mother. I understand then that it would have healed her, but not to your joy or hers. The day would have come when both of you and she would have looked back and said it would have been better to die in that illness. And Diggory could say nothing, for tears choked him, and he gave up all hopes of saving his mother's life. But at the same time he knew that the lion knew what would have happened, and that there might be things more terrible even than losing someone you love by death. But now Aslan was speaking again. That is what would have happened, child, with a stolen apple. It is not what will happen now. What I give you now will bring joy. It will not in your world give endless life, but it will heal. Go, pluck your mother an apple from the tree. For a second, Diggory could hardly understand. It was as if the whole world had turned upside down and out and upside down, and then, like someone in a dream, he was walking across the tree, and the king and queen were cheering him, and all the creatures were cheering too. And then he plucked the apple and he put it in his pocket, and he came back to Aslan. Please, he said, may we go home now? He had forgotten to say thank you, but he meant it, and Aslan understood. Looks like chapter 15, the end of this story and the beginning of all others. And I know even though it is not 10 minutes, I think we're going to stop here and save the last chapter for Tuesday. So thanks for listening, you guys, and I hope you listen tomorrow.